It was supposed to be just another quiet evening in the suburbs, the kind of night where people walked their dogs, watched reruns on TV, or tucked their children into bed. But for Marcus Bell, a 32-year-old father of two, it turned into something far more horrifying, something that would change his life forever. He had just finished his shift at the warehouse, sore from hours of lifting boxes and trying to make ends meet. His oldest daughter had a dance recital coming up, and he had promised her he'd be there no matter what. So when he stopped by a convenience store to grab a quick energy drink before heading home, the last thing he expected was to be face down on the pavement, a police officer's knee crushing his spine, the lights, the shouting, the cold steel of handcuffs cutting into his wrists. It all happened so fast. No explanations, no chance to speak, just a flurry of accusations and assumptions based on nothing but the color of his skin and the hoodie he wore. Moments later, he couldn't feel his legs. People gathered, phones came out, someone screamed. But by the time the ambulance arrived, Marcus could already tell. His body didn't respond the way it used to. In that instant, everything was taken from him. His ability to walk, to work, to play with his kids in the backyard. All gone in seconds. And yet the officers didn't seem concerned. No apologies, no report of excessive force. Just a quick write-up labeling him non-compliant. But the truth, captured on several cell phone cameras, told a much different story. The kind of story that would shake a city, spark protests, and eventually lead to a $100 million lawsuit that would put the entire police department under federal scrutiny. But Marcus's story isn't the only one that unfolded that day. Just a few miles away, on a city bus rattling down the street, something completely different, yet equally powerful, was happening. 17-year-old Elijah Moore had just finished tutoring at his local library. A straight-A student with dreams of studying engineering, Elijah was known for being polite, helpful, and always quick to smile. As the bus grew more crowded at the next stop, he noticed a woman step on, visibly pregnant and holding her lower back with a wince. Without hesitation, Elijah stood up and offered his seat. The woman hesitated at first, surprised by his kindness, especially in a city where people mostly kept to themselves. But she nodded gratefully and took the seat. She looked tired, like she'd been running around all day. Elijah smiled, nodded politely, and grabbed a handrail as the bus pulled away. They didn't speak much, just a few words, small talk. But when she stood to get off a few stops later, she slipped a folded note into his hand and whispered, "Read this later, and thank you." At first, Elijah didn't think much of it. People sometimes said thank you in odd ways. But when he finally unfolded the note at home, the words inside made his heart stop. His hands trembled. It wasn't just a thank you note. It was something far bigger than that. Something that could change the direction of his entire life. Back across town, news of Marcus's injury had already begun to spread. His family gathered at the hospital, doctors murmuring about the severity of the damage. His mother wept silently by his side. His wife tried to hold herself together for the kids, but her eyes betrayed the fear and pain she carried. Reporters started circling like vultures. Activists gathered outside. And the department's silence only poured fuel on the fire. The officers involved, placed on administrative leave pending further investigation. But the footage, graphic, unflinching, undeniable, told the world what really happened. It wasn't just about one man. It was about years of unchecked power, ignored complaints, and a pattern of abuse that could no longer be swept under the rug. Soon, lawyers entered the picture. Civil rights groups got involved. Politicians began releasing statements, carefully, worded and painfully late. But the damage was done. Marcus would never walk again. His children would never again be lifted onto his shoulders. And the city, once indifferent, now burned with outrage. Meanwhile, Elijah's life was changing in ways he couldn't yet understand. That note? It wasn't from just any woman. She wasn't a stranger at all. Her name was Emily Harrison, and her family name was known in every corner of the state. Her father ran one of the most powerful philanthropic foundations in the country. and Emily had seen something in Elijah that most people overlooked. A spark, a quiet strength, a selflessness, rare in his generation. The note contained more than just kind words. It had an offer, one that would open doors Elijah never knew existed. But it also came with a decision, one that would connect him, in a strange twist of fate, to Marcus's story in ways no one could have predicted. As the lawsuit against the police department gained traction, and media outlets began to peel back layers of corruption and negligence, Elijah found himself pulled into a world of wealth, influence, and choices he never imagined having to make. Would he stay grounded in the community that raised him? Or step into a new life built on opportunity and recognition? In one part of the city, a man fought for justice after his life was shattered. In another, a young boy stood on the edge of something extraordinary, simply because he chose kindness when no one was looking. But fate had plans neither of them could see coming, and as protests turned into national headlines, and Elijah prepared to meet the mysterious family behind the letter that changed his life, a chilling discovery was made about one of the officers involved in Marcus's case, one that would turn the investigation on its head and bring everything to a boil. But that's where we'll pause for now. Because what happened next, no one was prepared for. Elijah sat on the edge of his bed, the note still clutched in his hand, the edges slightly crumpled from how many times he had read it. The words weren't long, but they carried a weight that pressed deep into his chest. There's something special in you. Call this number. Don't wait too long. Emily Harrison. He had looked up the name not just once, but 5 times. He even cleared his browser history like he had done something wrong. Her family owned several properties across the city, funded scholarships for elite schools, and their name was tied to half a dozen major charities. Elijah couldn't understand why someone like her would notice someone like him. Just a quiet black kid from the east side who gave up his seat on the bus. He hadn't told anyone yet, not even his mom. And she was the one person he told everything. Downstairs, she was making tea, her voice low as she spoke on the phone, probably with Aunt Denise, who always had a theory for everything. Elijah could hear her say Marcus Bell's name. She'd been following the news since it broke. Like everyone else in the neighborhood, she was furious, heartbroken, and scared. Marcus wasn't just some random guy on the news. He grew up 3 streets away. He went to the same high school Elijah would be graduating from next year. His younger brother used to coach Little League at the park. People knew him. He worked hard, stayed out of trouble, loved his kids, and smiled like he had no reason not to, even when the bills piled up. And now, one wrong stop, one mistaken identity, one decision made in fear or bias or worse, and Marcus's whole life was shattered. The video had gone viral, too viral. One angle showed him putting his hands up. Another showed the officer shoving him into the side of the squad car. The worst part was the moment Marcus fell. He didn't resist. He didn't run. But he still ended up face down, body stiff, legs motionless, eyes full of shock and pain. Elijah had watched it only once. That was enough. Now reporters were circling the neighborhood like they owned it. Every time someone stepped outside for groceries, there was a camera or a mic asking, "Did you know him? How do you feel?" As if the pain needed words. But something strange had started to spread, quiet at first. Whispers. People talking about one of the officers involved in the arrest, Officer Ryan Clay. His name hadn't been officially released, but folks on social media had done the digging. And once they did, everything started unraveling. There were past complaints, buried, dismissed, or never followed up. A local barber remembered being stopped by him for looking suspicious on his way home from work. A single mother recalled how her teenage son was thrown against a wall outside a gas station. No charges, just a warning. No one had ever come forward publicly. But now people were talking. There were rumors Officer Clay had ties to an online group that shared law and order memes, but had a disturbing undercurrent of racism. Nothing proven, nothing official, but enough to make people wonder how he was ever cleared to patrol neighborhoods like theirs. Elijah couldn't stop thinking about that. about how someone like that had the power to end a man's freedom in seconds. But as the tension in the city grew, so did the pressure on Elijah. The number in the note burned a hole in his pocket. Every time he thought about calling, he stopped. Himself. What would he even say? Hey, I'm the kid from the bus? What if it was a mistake? What if she gave the note to the wrong person? And yet, what if it wasn't? The next day at school, Elijah could feel the shift. Teachers whispered behind closed doors. Some students argued over what happened to Marcus. Others ignored it completely, pretending nothing had happened. At lunch, Elijah sat alone, the note folded neatly in his backpack. Then came the email. It was from an address he didn't recognize, but the subject line read, "A door is opening. Don't be afraid to walk through it." Inside was a simple message. "We're expecting your call, Elijah. Don't wait too long." There was no name, no signature, but it was enough to make his heart race. He looked around the cafeteria. No one was watching him. No one could know what was happening in his world. It was as if he was living in two different realities, one where Marcus Bell's case was tearing through the city, and another where a powerful family saw something in him he didn't even see in himself. That night, he finally told his mom. She listened quietly, stirring sugar into her tea, not interrupting once. When he finished, she just nodded. "I always told you your kindness would lead you to places," she said softly. "But not every open door is safe. You hear me?" Elijah nodded. "Just stay grounded, baby. And be careful who's watching. You." Those words stuck with him more than anything. Because someone was watching. He felt it. That weekend, as protests surged downtown and the city buzzed with outrage, Elijah dialed the number. 1 ring. 2 rings. Then a voice answered, calm, professional, almost too polished. "Mr. Moore, we've been waiting for your call." And just like that, everything started moving fast. He was invited to a private dinner, not at a restaurant, at the Harrison family estate, a place so big it had gates, cameras, and its own zip code. They sent a car, a driver, instructions, no media, no phones. As Elijah stepped into the estate's grand foyer, the ceiling high above his head, the floors shining like glass, he felt something shift inside him, like he was standing at the edge of something vast and unfamiliar. Emily was there, smiling warmly, dressed simply but with an ease that spoke of wealth he couldn't even fathom. "I knew you'd call," she said. Elijah looked around, unsure of what to say. "Why me?" he finally asked. "Because character matters," she replied, "even when no one's looking." But there was something else in her tone, something she wasn't saying. Before dinner, she showed him a room filled with scholarship applications, photos, binders, and files. Stories of kids just like him. But none of them had gotten a handwritten note. None of them had been personally invited. And then she said something that made the hairs on his neck stand up. "This isn't just about your future, Elijah. It's about what you're walking into and what's coming." He didn't understand what she meant. Not yet. But outside, the city was still boiling. The lawsuit was heating up. New footage had just surfaced, angles that hadn't been released. One of them showed something disturbing. One of the officers slipping something into his pocket after Marcus hit the ground. And the people weren't staying quiet anymore. A reckoning was coming, and somehow Elijah was caught in the middle of it. The question was, why? And what did Emily Harrison know that she wasn't saying? Because in the next few days, the truth would begin to slip through the cracks. And when it did, everything, Marcus's case, Elijah's invitation, Officer Clay's secrets, would collide in a way that no one saw coming. Elijah couldn't sleep after that dinner. His mind was spinning. Everything about the night felt surreal. The estate, the way the staff moved like ghosts, and how Emily spoke to him like he was already part of something bigger. She never mentioned the note again, and she didn't bring up Marcus Bell directly, but the tension in her voice, the way she said what's coming, made it clear she knew something. The next morning, Elijah found himself staring at his reflection, unsure of who he was becoming. Just a week ago, he was a regular kid trying to get through school, ignoring the chaos outside as best he could. But now, it felt like the world was pulling him into something much larger and deeper. On the news, the lawsuit had gained national attention. Civil rights attorneys from across the country were arriving in the city. A black law firm out of D.C. had officially taken on Marcus Bell's case and filed a $100 million lawsuit against the city and the officers involved. Protesters gathered every evening downtown, holding signs that said, "Justice for Marcus, hands off our people, and we won't be silenced." The city tried to act like they were in control, but tension hung in the air like a storm that wouldn't pass. At school, Elijah kept his head down, but that didn't stop the questions. "Is it true?" his friend Ty asked during lunch. "You met the Harrisons?" Elijah hesitated. "Yeah, just once." "What did they want with you?" He shrugged. "Said they saw something in me." Ty raised an eyebrow. "Man, they don't just invite people to that house. That's not normal." Elijah knew Ty was right, and it wasn't just the visit. It was the way people suddenly treated him different. Teachers smiled a little longer. The assistant principal, who had barely noticed Elijah before, called him by name now. Something was shifting, and Elijah wasn't sure if it was good or dangerous. But the strangest part came a few days later. A girl named Zoe slipped a note into Elijah's locker. They had only talked in passing before. She was in his AP history class, smart, quiet, and always scribbling in a black notebook. The note was short. "Meet me at the library after school." "Don't tell anyone." He went. Zoe was already there, tucked in a corner behind a stack of books. Her face was serious, eyes scanning the room like she expected someone to follow him. "I know what's happening," she whispered. "With you, and with Marcus." Elijah blinked. "What do you mean?" She pulled out a folder from her bag, thick with printouts and highlighted notes. "I've been following the case since the video came out, but I've also been looking into Officer Clay. There's more to him than people know. His uncle's on the city council. His sister works at Internal Affairs. Every time someone files a complaint, it disappears. And he's not the only one. There's a pattern." She laid out several pages in front of Elijah. Names, dates, incidents. "And look at this," she said, pointing to one page. "This is a report about a missing dashcam video from a traffic stop last year. The suspect, also black, injured during the arrest. Said one of the cops planted something on him. The case went nowhere, no footage. Guess who the arresting officer was?" "Clay?" Elijah said, heart-dropping. Zoe nodded. "This isn't just a bad cop, it's a system. And the Harrisons? They've been quiet for years about the city's problems. But now, they're suddenly interested in you?" She leaned closer. "They don't move unless there's something to gain. Be careful." That night, Elijah read every page Zoe gave him. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. Stories of people who had been hurt, arrested, silenced. Many who never filed formal complaints out of fear. Most didn't want their names public. But now that Marcus's story had blown up, some were coming forward. It was like a dam was cracking. But what troubled Elijah most was the timeline. Officer Clay had been suspended pending investigation, but new reports hinted that key footage from the night Marcus was paralyzed was missing. The body cam clips released had been edited, and the timestamp didn't match other city surveillance. Someone was hiding something. Meanwhile, the city officials acted like they were doing their jobs. Press conferences, empty statements, and promises of a fair and thorough review. But on the streets, trust was gone. People were angry, hurt, and ready for change. Elijah's mom saw it in his eyes, how the weight was getting heavier each day. "Whatever's happening, don't carry it alone," she told him as they sat watching the news. But Elijah didn't know who to trust. One afternoon, he got another call. This time from a blocked number. "Elijah, this is Marcus Bell's attorney. We heard about your meeting with the Harrisons. We'd like to speak with you, privately." Elijah froze. "Why?" "Because there are pieces to this puzzle, we think." "You might have," the voice replied. "And because you were seen that night." Elijah's heart stopped. What do you mean? Seen where? The bus, the attorney said. There's footage of you giving up your seat and someone else was watching. Someone who followed you off the bus. We think they're connected to what happened. Elijah felt a cold shiver run down his spine. He remembered that night so clearly, the way the air felt, the way that white SUV slowed behind him when he crossed the street. He didn't think much of it then. But now it didn't feel like a coincidence. I don't know anything, he said quickly. We think you do, the attorney said gently. Or you will, and when you're ready to talk, call this number. Elijah hung up, his hands shaking. That night he barely slept. Images flashed in his mind. Marcus lying still, the way Emily had spoken in riddles. Zoe's folder, the blocked number. None of this felt like something a teenager should be part of, but he was in it now. Whether he liked it or not. And what haunted him most was the feeling that everything was connected. The bus, the note, the lawsuit, Officer Clay, and the quiet war happening beneath the surface of the city. The question wasn't if the truth would come out. It was who would survive it when it did.